your podcast and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Joe from Startuprad.io, your startup podcast and YouTube blog from Germany, bringing you again another episode in our series Entrepreneur Tools. This time again with Silke. You may remember her from the last episode. Nonetheless, would you like to introduce yourself briefly to our audience again, Silke?
Yeah, thank you very much, Jan, for inviting me again. Yeah, my name is Silke Glaab. I'm an organizational psychologist and executive coach, and I'm very happy to share some tools that you can apply in your busy daily life.
Yes, the last time we have spoken, I titled it Strategies to Sharpen Your Entrepreneurial Decision Making. What are we going to talk about today? Because you did some extensive preparations. We tried to keep it short this time. Last time we went over an hour. We tried to keep it a little bit shorter this time.
Yeah, so today I wanted to share something on the communication side. What kind of frame you can use to improve your communication skills. And then also a tip if you're more like an introvert in as a personality and what kind of tools you can use then. And also some self-inquiry as a leader. And if you have then still some time remaining, I would like to talk about something called Holacracy. Holacracy. The new trend if you want to expand your business and you start with few people and then you're expanding very fast. So it's a new approach to a company structure.
Okay, so let's dive in and I'll give you the floor. And as always, I bother you with some questions here and there. And everybody who would like to learn more, go down here in the show notes. There is a link to our blog post where people can reach out to you on your LinkedIn profile and so on and so forth.
Okay, great. So let's talk about the we, I, it frame. Some people maybe also know the Schulz von Thurn model, but let's talk today about the we, I, it frame. We stands for, first of all, what kind of relationship we have with each other. When you're in a communication, is it equal? Is there a hierarchy? Is there some disturbance between us? That also goes into the we. Then it's also important in any way if you negotiate or you have any form of communication and someone is more opposing. Then it's also very clever to use more we. So find common interest between you and the other person and then use the phrase we. If we want to achieve that, then we should or we could consider. This brings the two parties together and it creates a sense that both of you are standing at the same side of the table, so to say.
It's also something like a trick to make it non-personal, because if I tell somebody, no, you should not do it like that, you're smart ass. But if you tell somebody told me to do it like that, you're not a smart ass, but basically you're communicating the same information.
Yeah, and you always try to bring both sides on board when you say also the we phrase. You already spoke about the I. I statements are still very important because you don't want to offend someone and come all the time what you already said with you. The I statement is that you can speak more about your observation. I observe that when we are in this situation, you become a little bit more rigid and I become more defensive. Is there a way we could solve that to have a better communication with each other? And the I statement is really a feeling you have, and feelings can't be debated. because it's very individual for each and everybody. And the other one is that you speak more about an observation. And then we have the it. It can be facts, mostly facts and data. And with this, also consider what you want. Are you prepared for the theme? Because in each and every communication, you should be also aware where the whole thing is going. And if a communication is stuck, you can also refresh it if you say, imagine. Yeah, if someone is difficult, more difficult to follow your advice, you could just phrase it like this: imagine. Imagine this would work out, what needs to happen. And there you bring also the person into a different state of mind, because from being defensive and trying to find new arguments, you are now invited to imagine something. This I feel very clever indeed. And then we still have the you. And if you want to address the you, address it in a way that you have really listened to the other person. You can say, if I understood you right, you mean this and this and this. You can also say, like this, how the person is feeling. It seems you feel confused about it. And then the other person can rectify it. And it also gives you a sense on the feeling level again, and pulls also that to make aware that you are following what the other person is saying, but you're also following how the other person maybe feels about a certain situation. And if you really study that frame and you apply it, you will really see a shift in your communication. Even if you want to start an email, just consider these 4 types. The we, form common interest, form common ground. I statement about your feelings. Stay to the fact, maybe imagine if we did that, this could look like that. And then the you is more in an individual conversation. Mm-hmm. So with this, we have targeted the we, I, it, her. Do you have any further questions on this one, Jörn, or some experiences in difficult conversations you had?
Nothing I could share in public.
Okay. Okay. Then let's move on. If you are more an introvert, and you're not the big communicator, then it's very wise, because introverts often have a quite reservoir of knowledge, that you use text message in form of emails, reports, presentations, to really communicate your vision, communicate what is important for you, because introverts are often quite very good in written text. If you want to talk with people, then preferably try to meet them in one-on-ones. And another very good tip, I believe, is that you are paraphrasing, that you become a very good listener without you talking too much. Invite the other person to talk. You ask questions, you rectify what you have understood. And surprisingly, people believe that after that you're a very, very good communicator, because they feel really hurt if you are not talking yourself all the time. And another one is what I also sense a lot with my private clients, or that's something I invite my clients to do, is self-inquiry. If you are in a certain situation, just become vulnerable first of all to yourself. What are you feeling in a certain situation? Why are you reacting? Or you can ask yourself, why am I reacting to this situation like this? So, for example, with client, the client felt very like, how can you say, not listened to in group meetings. And then I invited the client really to go deeper. So what's really going on in the client's head? What is he telling himself? What is a feeling reaction he has at that very moment? That the whole conversation takes place without him in this very moment. And this really invites you to come more to the bottom. Is there maybe a program running that you are quite aware of and that's running maybe already for a couple of years? And often it stems also from childhood experiences. And if you start to dig a little bit deeper how you're feeling in a certain situation and how you are reacting as a result of it, this I call self-inquiry. Another one is also to ask yourself, the way I lead, does that contribute to the purpose of this organization? What kind of values do I have? And also, where are my strengths, or what are my strengths? And where I have some biases, some cognitive biases that I want to explore a little bit more. This is all about you as a leader. And then also you can look how you are practicing or behaving as a leader. Are you able to motivate your team? Are you able to coach them? Are you able to inspire them? And are you also empathic? Can you understand how certain team members are feeling in your team? Yeah. So this is now in very brief, fast sentences what I wanted to.
The problem to me has always been that the worst leaders think of themselves very highly, but it's always a problem to really discuss something like this objectively. Many companies do a review, or the boss reviews his employees, but it's barely the case that the bosses get reviewed by their employees. And I do believe that's something you should totally bring up. That is an opportunity to improve. But when you talk about this self-reflection, do you have some kind of technique or techniques where you can use? Because when you just start thinking about one situation at work or something like this, you usually get on the wrong path if you just try to go down your own rabbit hole. Is there something that would help with those reflections here?
Yeah, for me, the basic terms is again the feeling. Can you remember last time we also spoke about feelings? And then I said that's a very important vocabulary for you to inquire, because you act because based of certain feelings and emotions you have. And the first step is to observe yourself. That's actually mindfulness, to hold, to pause, and to become aware what's happening inside your body. Maybe in the beginning it's a sensation in your body, and then you label it with a certain feeling. And out of this you react. And if you are more equipped and better equipped to label your feelings right, you will have different reactions. Let's go back to that meeting. If that person feels like not to belong, then you withdraw. If you have the feeling, I don't belong here, nobody is interested in me, you're withdrawing and you don't start to contribute in any way. And if you just say, I feel left out, I feel the whole conversation is without me, then you can ask yourself, how could I bring myself in? It's not so strong then when you say I don't belong, because that's a really basic need we have to belong. But if you say, I feel I'm getting more quiet, I observe myself getting more quiet, I sense that I'm going like more inside myself. So what's really going on? Is that I don't belong, or is it more I feel left out, or I don't feel included? And then you can ask yourself, what can I do to bring myself back into that? Yeah. And also saying still part of the team. They didn't ask me to leave. It's now my own reaction to what I feel in that very moment. To ask about your values is to ask, what do I want to achieve as a leader? What is important for me when I'm in the position of the leader? And then you come to your values. Do you say empowerment is important for you? Or do you say status is important for me? Influence is important for me? Or is it more collaboration? And to ask yourself, what kind of motives, what kind of goals do you have in your workplace as a leader? Yeah, that's some tools I would recommend. And then also get more known about some biases you may have, which also affect your decision making. We spoke about them also last time.
Personal experiences here. The most important metrics for getting promoted, getting noticed by your superiors is something you can see in a PowerPoint presentation or an Excel sheet. The best ways to get your team to work on this is something you can capture in Excel sheets or PowerPoint presentations. So that's basically where you first have to lay the groundwork. You shouldn't be. A friend of mine always calls it seagull management. The seagulls, they come in, they scream around, and then they disappear again.
Yeah. And you also mentioned that employees are assessing their leaders. And it's in quite a number of companies, it's quite common to have these 360-degree feedbacks. And this is exactly then what comes from the ground. And then it's not always very pleasant for the leader up. It can be also used as some politics around. Originally, it's a very great tool to get insights and perspectives from different levels, to see what kind of culture is really in that organization, and to also accept feedback.
You can already tell that a culture of a company is broken if the leader can select who gives you feedback, or if you just cannot select the persons you want to give feedback on. If there are strict rules, if they're implemented thoroughly, the bosses decide who gives feedback about them. You can already tell, why should they do that?
Yeah. That's very, very obvious. Yes.
I've seen companies from the inside that do that.
Yeah, that's a question to me.
No.
It's a statement from you. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm sorry, but that is something. You always talk about employee performance and measuring them, but you don't measure the leaders. And usually, I do believe that really holds true. The saying goes, people are coming for the challenges and leaving due to bad management. And I've seen over and over and over again that companies just keep the bad managers and hire new people instead of asking different and difficult questions here.
Yeah. But then you see that through a more hierarchy level, maybe the upper managers or supervisors, they're not always aware what other team leaders are doing. And therefore, these feedbacks from the employees are a very good tool. And it needs to be embedded in a culture where it's safe. We call it psychological safety, that even if that feedback was not so good, it's not used like an instrument now to downgrade the manager, but to really have honest discussion how that manager can improve. And this is what I call psychological safety. So it's for everybody in that organization. And then you also have a higher chance that that leader takes it up and really tries to grow in it.
What I want to add is that I've made the experience in more established companies, the people get promoted because their bosses like them and not their employees like them. And if you really want to work on a company culture, you should question this old paradigm.
Yeah. And that's also like the cognitive biases of maybe that person is similar to me and therefore I like it. I like that person.
Not only that, but also the bias. He has now the title of whatever. He is now a director of many, many things. And therefore he knows it better than the people he has worked with in a team for 5 years. Why? It's just a title.
Yeah. And therefore this other aspect I wanted to talk about, this holacracy, is really a very new approach where you can get rid of this kind of entitlement, because there are no titles anymore, there are roles. So it's a new approach. You want me to go further on this one? Yeah. So holacracy also stems from where agile management somehow stopped. And then there were some great guys who said, okay, let's bring that even a little bit further on an organizational level. And it's quite appealing for startup companies because you may start with some few employees and then rapidly you grow. And in this case, the founder, the CEO, is not able to take up all responsibilities anymore. So these guys, they said, okay, let's just leave any director and vice president and whatever the names are and really look deeply what kind of activities. Let's the hypothesis that you said you had maybe 4 employees or 6 employees. And you did also quite a lot for yourself, and then it's growing now. And then you really define what activities are really needed in this organization. And then you give it a role. A role always has a purpose. So what is the role now? What's the objective of the whole thing? And accountability. So a role can be that I'm doing website development and purpose is to create an excellent website and activities is the whole design work. Then I'm also maybe someone who is responsible, has the role to alert if there are any kind of bugs in the system. And then my accountability is that I also take care of that one. And in these activities, I do everything when it comes to web design. But maybe I also have a role in marketing because as I know the whole software, I know the software design and web design, I'm also very good in selling. So I also have a role in the sales team. So it's not that there is a marketing team and they're only the marketeers. With a role, you can be part of different circles. So departments become circles. And I found that really interesting because with this, you can cover up whatever activity is coming up. Now, you will ask, so that's very confusing. Yeah, so if everybody has a role now, who is now the lead? And actually, there is still a lead of a circle. But this person doesn't have any title anymore. So that person can give the strategy, that person can allocate some work, can define rules, can ask where people are in the process. But that person can't hire and fire anymore. And meetings are also not governed necessarily anymore by that lead. the lead is there to make sure the strategy is there. There is a vision for this circle, and that like to follow up and more monitor the process. And he can't just say, you have to take up that work. So you can't just say, okay, do this one now. You have to request. There is a new way how you bring people together. It's a mode of conduct. So as a lead, you can request that someone takes on additional work. Other team members can also do that. And the person that it's asked can say yes or no, but if the person says no, they have to really bring arguments that rectify that why the person can't take up further work. Then also as a leader, you can request that people prioritize their task. So if you see that according to the strategy, certain task needs to be done, and someone is working on something else, you can streamline that. You can say, according to the strategy, kindly everybody in that role prioritize now on the strategy. And you can also request that people open up their work, what they're doing in that very moment. So that the manager becomes more the lead of the circle, but meetings will be governed by someone else, because in that circle, there's also the role of holding a meeting, like the facilitator of a meeting, and that's not necessarily the lead of that team circle. So I found that really, really interesting, because at any time, you know what the role and accountability of a certain person is. Do you have any? Is it new for you? Have you ever?
I've seen so many companies from the outside and the inside during my 15 years of consulting work. And I do believe a lot of people are now getting really confused. How can I enforce the rules? And other people, I know, especially in higher management, they pride themselves. Yeah, I have 15 direct reports. If you're leading a circle, you can't talk about direct reports anymore. So I do believe that alone will be some obstacles to change. But guys, don't get me wrong. I'm not necessarily bashing here traditional models and saying they are wrong. I'm giving you some examples in order for you to think about how your organization should be, how it is, and what else you could do. So basically, you can see it between Silke, who gives you new ideas, and I give you some old ideas, and you can think about what will work better for you. There's no judgment either way. Only you should allow every employee to leave a review for every employee.
Yeah, and in this model, of course, it's really a cultural change, and it's easier if you start from a startup. Yeah, and you apply that. They are really governing rules, Jörn, in that approach. Alone, that you say there is really this all agreement of transparency, then this thing to prioritize, and also to open up where you are in the process. Then even you have discovering meetings where everybody, like in very brief meetings, say where they are and what they need. Do they need any resources? And the manager as such is not so relevant anymore. It's more to give in the strategy. And if someone in the team, in a governing meeting, says, okay, I'm now totally overworked, or I realized we haven't covered a certain role, then even a team member can request a new role. It's a cultural change. It's not something that you snip. It's not with your fingers and it's there, but it's worth to really think about the way you're currently managing and how are your resources are really spread. And also in this, people have autonomy, so they can define how they interpret this role, in which way they want to fulfill their task. But they also are bound to certain restrictions, so that they actually always, when they're requested, they really have to open up where they are. And they also asked to prioritize. And if it comes to budget, you can't just spend things. So there is another lead or circle that's responsible for this one. And it's really a new way how you see your employees and a new way of leadership. Because if you go for status, if you go for influence, if you go for power, then this approach won't be the right one anymore. If you say, okay, actually, I want to empower everybody and I want to get the best ideas from everybody, and I want to have an overview what's really needed in this organization, and not to come out with job descriptions, but with prescriptions of where you're responsible for, accountability, and define that for what that person is accountable for, and not to have an endless job description. So you can act quite ad hoc. If a new activity needs to be covered, you can easily discuss that within the circle who will take it up.
And I was wondering, when you've been talking about that, it's not about status anymore. It's not about titles anymore. If you're considering to implement this in your company, you should also think about how it will impact your recruiting and what different people that approach may attract to your company.
Yeah, definitely more the younger generation who really like to work in teams with each other and who have this transparency. And with this, there actually is some research. So a hierarchical structure is quite good if you have to make a very fast decision or it's a very complex thing. Then you have all the hierarchies, the process is very well defined, but it hinders innovation. If you want to have innovation, if you want to bring up new ideas, then these kinds of agile teams, Holacracy, are really the new way to go, because you also want to react very fast to the market. And I don't know have you followed Bayer? Yeah, they really had to change immediately. And it's a big, complex company who had several hierarchy levels. And they realized that their shares are really falling. And they also realized that they are not near to the customers anymore. And then this new CEO came in and he said the only way this company can survive is if we have this kind of teams, circles. And then it was discussed with the union. And just to save also jobs, there will be a lot of hierarchies are already not there anymore. And they work in this kind of, everybody has a new word for it, but in the end, it's circles where people have defined roles and they can be member of different circles to bring really up the best talent, innovation, and the strength someone is bringing to the team, and to react very fast and very individual what customers need.
Another aspect that comes to mind when you've been talking about that, not being close to the clients anymore. I'm not saying that this agile mindset will change that necessarily, but I've heard from several people over and over again, there's a certain size, maybe 3,500, maybe 5,000 employees, when a company just getting busy with itself and kind of losing touch with the market because they have so much internal administration, so much internal politics. And you should also keep that in mind. Maybe a few of the listeners out there are building up companies that will get to this size at one point. And so that is also something you should have in mind. As I said, No challenges, no best, no worst approach, just a lot to think about here.
Yeah. And how do you want to govern your organization? And also in this Holacracy, you can also still, as the CEO, you can still be part of circles. You also have a specific role in the circle so that you keep like the overview. And you are also part of the board that's now surrounding each of the circles. I personally found it a very interesting approach, especially when it comes to volatility, what is expected from organizations. And if you have the chance to build it up in this way, then you're already like proven for the future. And the other ones, just think about it. Yeah, is that something you feel aligned? Because this will involve really a cultural change. That's not something, okay, we just bring some agile tools into our organization. We do some stand-ups instead of long meetings. We just stand and then everybody just reports where they are and what they need. And then maybe you have a Kanban board. That won't make you agile only because you're just applying some interventions. It really needs the complete mindset of agility and leading differently.
And it usually doesn't work if you want to press an agile mindset into existing project portfolios. I've seen that, and basically it's like you want to hammer a square into a circle. It just doesn't work. It breaks at the end. So usually not a good idea.
Yeah, completely not good idea. And therefore, if you really go for it, it has to start with the top management. People have to be trained, have to be adjusted. Yeah, and bring the right people into the teams. Because everybody, before I asked the question, what kind of motives or what drives you as a leader? So are you going for empowerment, collaboration, or are you going for what I repeatedly said, power, influence? And then you will always have different people in the team and then mix them up. Yeah, because you don't want only people who like to be social. You also want to have maybe some people in the team who look and try to influence that people are moving forward and not only have a nice time with each other. So bringing different characters into a team, I believe, is also important.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Throwing together the most diverse people has always helped me. As one of the best projects I was in was when I was boss of 45 people from 9 different countries. Was very interesting project there. Sorry, go ahead.
So these were some ideas concerning, your communication, your self-inquiry, and holacracy. Something to really ponder about and search for these different approaches. And I hope you got some new knowledge, some food for thought. Yeah, this would make me really happy. Jan, anything that you are interested in?
Actually, I also do have a lot to think about because in the past I've worked with agile methodology with different build-up approaches, and I've been always kind of swinging between corporate world and startup world. That's why I try to contrast you in this second piece a little bit more, for the very simple reason because one is very much picture book startup, the other one is very much active lived corporate life, large corporate life, and there's always a truth somewhere in between that you should find out there either as an employee and look for the right company with the right culture, with the right approach, or if you're yourself in charge of company or parts of the company, you should think about what do you really want, and to contrast both ways and actually not try to do everything, because that always just doesn't work.
Yeah, and start with a pilot. So if you're already quite a mature company, maybe you start in one department with this new approach. Because like Bayer, I don't even know how they manage to break all these hierarchies and force people into these teams, but it's forceful.
I do believe they could only do it with economic necessity, because if there would
It's
be
out of
not a
necessity.
pressing economic need, you would never get that change through. Wouldn't work.
Yeah. So, but that's happening there. So if you're like, okay, I'm quite intrigued by it, and you're open-minded, then I always recommend a start with a department that's also open-minded and try this new approach out. And then you may spread it to other departments too. So all these agile things, they started in software development. If you are in software development, maybe you're already doing it with your programmers. Where it's start in a department that's easy and open-minded to try it out, and then make a baseline, measure was there an improvement, and then you can discuss how you want to bring it further.
Actually, pretty good closing words. Everybody who would like to learn more, go down here in the show notes, and there's a link to my LinkedIn profile, and there's a link to Silke's LinkedIn profile where you can leave some feedback, as well as give us a good review and thumbs up wherever you're listening to this or watching this.
Yeah, and I say really thank you, Jörn, for giving me this opportunity to share these tools on your podcast. And to all the listeners and watchers, I hope you can really take something for yourself out of it. It was a really pleasure.
Pleasure was totally mine. Have a good day. Hope to have you back someday. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.